The great hall of the Galactic Concord stretched for nearly a mile. Its walls were made of living crystal that glowed with soft light. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds sat in floating chairs arranged in wide circles. They had gathered here for 12,000 years to keep peace among the stars. Today they would discuss a small blue world called Earth. Ambassador Venya Thross walked to the center platform. She was tall and thin, with silver skin that shifted colors when she felt strong emotions. Right now her skin showed pale blue, the color of concern. She represented the Sildari hegemony, one of the oldest members of the Concord. "Honored members," she began, her voice carried by invisible speakers to every ear in the chamber. 3 cycles ago, our deep space monitors detected an object crossing into Concord territory. It was small, primitive, made of simple metals and basic electronics. She waved her hand and a hologram appeared above her. It showed a golden disc attached to a simple metal frame. Solar panels spread out like wings. The whole thing was no bigger than a ground vehicle. "This is a human probe," Venya continued. "It comes from the quarantined world in Sector 7G, the one they call Earth." Murmurs spread through the hall. Earth was well known among the Concord. It had been watched for centuries. The humans there had fought wars, built cities, and slowly crawled toward the stars. But they were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be contained. High Counselor Mordeth Khan rose from his seat. He was massive, with 4 arms and skin like rough stone. His species, the Vethri, had founded the Concord long ago. They believed they had a right to rule. "How did this happen?" he demanded. "The quarantine field should have stopped any vessel from leaving their system." "The probe was too small," Venya explained. "It slipped through the gaps in our detection grid. It has been traveling for nearly 50 of their years. They launched it before we even established the current quarantine." This caused more whispers. 50 years was nothing to most species in the hall. But it showed something important. The humans had been reaching for the stars for a long time. "What do you suggest we do?" asked another counselor. This one was a Netheri, a being made mostly of light and gas. Venya's skin shifted to yellow, showing her uncertainty. "We have 3 options. First, we could extend the quarantine for another 1,000 years and hope they do not advance further. Second, we could make first contact and offer them membership as a client species. Third, we could send a diplomatic fleet to assess their true capabilities." The third option made many beings shift in their seats. Everyone knew what a diplomatic fleet really meant. 400 warships arriving at your world was not diplomacy. It was a show of power. It was a warning. Sometimes it was an invasion dressed in pretty words. High Counselor Mortis smiled, though on his face it looked more like a crack forming in stone. "I vote for the diplomatic fleet. We should welcome our new friends into the galactic community. Show them what membership in the Concord means." The vote passed quickly. Most species in the Concord had learned long ago that disagreeing with the Vethri brought trouble. Within hours, orders were sent to the nearest military station. 400 warships would make their way to Earth. Far across the galaxy, on that small blue world, humans went about their lives. They drove to work. They raised children. They watched screens filled with entertainment and news. Most had no idea that anything unusual had happened. But in a building hidden deep underground, a group of men and women sat around a metal table. They wore simple clothes. They had no symbols or badges. If you saw them on the street, you would think they were ordinary people. General Marcus Webb sat at the head of the table. He was old with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. In his hand, he held a single sheet of paper. "They detected the probe," he said quietly. "Our sources confirm the Concord has voted. They are sending a fleet." A woman across from him leaned forward. Her name was Dr. Sarah Chen, and she had spent her entire life on this project. Her parents had worked on it. Her grandparents, too. 300 years of secret work, passed from generation to generation. "How long do we have?" she asked. 6 months, maybe less." Silence filled the room. Everyone knew what this meant. The moment they had prepared for was finally coming. The moment their ancestors had warned them about since that day 3 centuries ago, when a dying ship fell from the sky and changed everything. General Webb looked around the table. "Send the signal to Prometheus Station. Tell Commander Madaki to begin final preparations. It is time to show the galaxy that humanity is not what they think we are." Outside that underground room, the world continued spinning. The sun set over cities and farms and oceans. Children played while their parents made dinner. No one looked up at the stars with fear. They did not know that far above them, hidden in the darkness between worlds, humanity's true face was waiting to be revealed. 300 years of silence was about to end, and when it did, the galaxy would never be the same. The sky would split open, and everyone would watch. Commander Elsa Madaki stood at the window of Prometheus Station and looked out at the endless dark. Behind her, thousands of people worked at glowing screens and humming machines. Around her, hidden in the cold void of the Oort cloud, rested the greatest secret in human history. She was 60 years old with dark skin and white hair cut short. She had been born on this station. So had her mother. 3 generations of her family had lived and died in the darkness, keeping humanity's secret safe. A young officer approached her. "Commander, we have received the signal from Earth. The conquered fleet is coming." Elsa nodded slowly. She had known this day would come. Everyone here had known. They had trained for it, planned for it, dreamed of it, and feared it in equal measure. "Wake the council," she said, "and bring me the old recordings. I want to remember why we are doing this." An hour later, Elsa sat in a small room watching images on a screen. The footage was 300 years old, recovered from cameras that had long since turned to dust. It showed a beach somewhere on Earth, the Pacific Ocean. The record said, the sky was dark with storm clouds, and falling through those clouds came a ship. It was not large, perhaps the size of a house. It tumbled through the air, trailing fire and smoke. When it hit the water, the splash rose higher than the trees on shore. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then a door opened on the broken hull, and 3 beings crawled out onto the sand. They were called the Vithani. The recordings showed them clearly. They had 4 legs and 2 arms. Their skin was a deep purple color. Their eyes were large and dark and filled with pain. All 3 were dying. Their ship had been chased across 100 light years by Concorde hunters. The footage changed to show a hospital room. One of the Vithani lay in a bed, while human doctors worked to save it. They failed. All 3 died within a week. But before they died, they talked. They talked for hours and hours. They gave humanity everything they knew. The Vithani had been a peaceful species. They had invented music and art and medicine. When the Concorde found them, they welcomed the visitors with open arms. They signed treaties and joined the galactic community. Within a century, their world was stripped of resources. Their people were scattered across Concorde space to serve as workers and soldiers. Their culture was erased. Their history was forgotten. When they tried to resist, the Concorde called them criminals and hunted them to extinction. "This is what awaits you," the dying Vithani had warned. "The Concorde does not welcome primitive species. It consumes them. Hide yourselves. Build in secret. And when you are ready, stand together or die alone." The humans who found them faced a choice. They could reveal the crashed ship to the world. They could share the technology and knowledge the Vithani had given them. They could announce themselves to the galaxy and hope for the best. Instead, they chose silence. A small group of leaders from different nations came together. They created a secret organization with no name and no official existence. They took the Vithani technology and began to study it. And they began to build. The first station was small, hidden in an asteroid belt. Then came more stations, more ships, more factories. All of it secret, all of it invisible to the Concorde's watching eyes. They learned to hide their energy signatures. They developed stealth technology that made their ships invisible to any sensor. They dug into moons and hollowed out asteroids. They built an entire civilization in the shadows. Commander Madaki turned off the recording. She had seen it 100 times, but it still made her chest tight with emotion. Her whole life, her parents' lives, her grandparents' lives, all of it had been dedicated to this moment. She walked through Prometheus Station, past the living quarters where families lived in comfortable homes, carved into rock, past the schools where children learned both Earth history and the secrets of the stars, past the factories where workers built weapons that no Concorde species had ever imagined. She reached the main observation deck. Through the reinforced glass, she could see them. Ships, thousands of ships. They floated in the darkness like sleeping giants, carriers that could hold entire armies. battleships with guns that could crack a moon in half, fighters so fast they seemed to disappear. 300 years of work, 300 years of waiting, all of it hidden in plain sight while the Concorde watched Earth and saw only primitives playing with rockets. Her second-in-command, Captain Torres, joined her at the window. He was young, barely 30, but he had the steady eyes of someone born to command. "The fleet is ready," he said. "All ships report prepared for activation. We are waiting for your order." Else placed her hand on the cold glass. Somewhere out there, 400 Concorde warships were traveling toward Earth. They thought they were going to conquer a primitive world. They thought they would find frightened humans ready to kneel. They had no idea what was waiting for them. "Send word to all stations," Elsa said, her voice firm and clear. "Activate the Whisper Protocol. Tell them the time has come. Tell them to wake the sleeping giants." Across the solar system and beyond, in hidden bases and secret stations, the signal spread. Lights flickered on in dark places. Engines that had waited for decades began to hum. Crews took their positions. The galaxy was about to learn the truth about humanity. The conquered fleet moved through space like a river of steel and fire. 400 warships in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed under distant starlight. Their weapons hummed with power. This was the might of the Galactic Concorde, and it had crushed 1,000 worlds. High Admiral Rethus Vorn stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Judgment. He was Vathri, like most high officers in the fleet. His stone-like skin was decorated with medals and honors from 100 campaigns. He had never lost a battle. He did not expect to lose this one. "How long until we reach the human system?" he asked. 3 days, Admiral," replied his navigation officer. Vorn nodded with satisfaction. The entire galaxy was watching this moment. Cameras on every ship broadcast their journey to billions of viewers across conquered space. This was not just a military operation, it was a show, a demonstration of power for any species that might think about resisting. Ambassador Venya Thross watched from a corner of the bridge. She had asked to join the fleet as an observer. Something about this mission bothered her, though she could not say exactly what. "Admiral," she said carefully, "have we received any response from the humans?" Vorn laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. "They sent us a message. One of their leaders stood in front of cameras and begged for peace. They say they only want to be friends. They say they have no weapons." It was quite pathetic. "And you believe them?" "What reason would they have to lie? Our sensors show exactly what we expected. A few thousand primitive satellites around their planet, some old space stations, a handful of small ships that could barely reach their own moon. They are exactly what our report said, a young species playing with technology they do not understand." Venya said nothing, but her skin shifted to a worried blue. The humans had seemed calm in their message. Too calm. When the Concorde came for other species, there was always panic, screaming, desperate attempts to flee. The humans had simply asked for peace and then gone silent. Far ahead of the fleet, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. On its surface, the show continued. News programs broadcast images of the approaching alien ships. People filled the streets in some cities, holding signs and demanding answers from their governments. In other places, families gathered in their homes and held each other close. But deep underground, General Webb watched a different set of screens, and these showed the real truth. Across the planet, military forces moved to hidden shelters. Essential personnel reported to secret installations. The surface panic was real for most people, but the leaders knew better. They knew what was coming. "All ground teams are in position," reported one of his officers. "Civilian evacuation to deep bunkers is 70% complete. The public thinks they are emergency shelters." "Good," Webb said. "And the fleet?" "Commander Madaki reports all ships at full readiness. They are waiting for the signal." Webb allowed himself a small smile. For 300 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. They had built an empire in the shadows. They had watched the Concorde watch them, and they had laughed at what the aliens saw. The Concorde saw primitive rockets and clumsy space stations. They saw a species that could barely leave its own planet. They never thought to look harder. They never imagined that the real human fleet was hidden in places their sensors could not reach. In the darkness of the outer solar system, Commander Madaki gave her final orders. Her fleet spread across millions of miles of empty space. Some ships hid behind moons. Others floated in asteroid fields, their stealth systems making them invisible. A few had traveled even farther, taking position in the empty void between stars. All captains report ready, Torres told her. We have 3,200 ships in position. The Concorde fleet has no idea we are here. Good. Maintain silence until my signal. On the Concorde flagship, a sensor officer frowned at his screen. Admiral, I am detecting some unusual readings. Vorn barely glanced at him. What kind of readings? I am not sure. Small energy fluctuations in the outer system. They appear and disappear. It might be natural phenomena, solar radiation bouncing off asteroids. Ignore it, Vorn commanded. Focus on the mission. The officer nodded and returned to his work. But the readings continued. Tiny flickers of something at the edge of sensor range, like ghosts hiding in the dark. Ambassador Venya noticed the officer's concerned expression. She walked over to his station and looked at the data. The fluctuations were small, almost invisible, but there were thousands of them, all around the system, all positioned perfectly to surround anything that entered. Admiral, she said, her voice tight, I think we should investigate these readings more carefully. Vorn waved his massive hand dismissively. You worry too much, Ambassador. These are primitives. They have no secrets worth hiding. The fleet continued forward. 3 days became 2. 2 became 1. The ships entered the human solar system and began their approach to Earth. The whole galaxy watched their screens, waiting to see humanity kneel before the might of the Concorde. No one noticed the shadows moving in the darkness behind them. No one saw the thousands of engines slowly coming to life. No one heard the whispered communications passing between hidden ships. The trap was set. The prey had entered. And Commander Madaki, watching from Prometheus Station, finally gave the order that would change everything. All ships, she said calmly, prepare to decloak. It is time to show them who we really are. The Concorde fleet had arranged itself in a perfect arc around Earth. 400 warships, their weapons pointed at the blue planet below. High Admiral Vorn prepared to deliver his ultimatum. The cameras were rolling. The galaxy was watching. People of Earth, he began, his rough voice broadcast across 1,000 worlds. We come to you in peace. The Galactic Concorde welcomes you to the community of civilized species. You have 2 choices. Accept our protection and guidance, or face the consequences of resistance. You have 1 hour to respond. On Earth's surface, televisions and screens showed the alien fleet. People wept. Some prayed. Others simply stared in horror at the massive ships hanging in their sky. But in the underground command center, General Webb smiled. Send the response, he said. A single transmission left Earth and reached every ship in the Concorde fleet. It was simple. Just 7 words. Look behind you. Look all around you. Admiral Vorn frowned. What is this nonsense? Are they trying to trick us? Then his sensor officer screamed. The screens filled with red warnings. Energy signatures appeared everywhere at once. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. Space itself seemed to tear apart. The stealth fields dropped simultaneously. Ships appeared where nothing had been moments before. They emerged from behind moons and rose from asteroid fields. They decloaked in the darkness between planets. They materialized in a perfect sphere around the entire Concorde fleet. Ambassador Venya grabbed the nearest console to steady herself. Her skin flashed through every color of emotion. Fear, shock, awe. That is impossible, she whispered. The human fleet was enormous. Carriers stretched for miles, their hulls covered with launch bays for thousands of fighters. Battleships bristled with weapons that glowed with unknown energy. Cruisers and destroyers filled the gaps between the giants. Every ship was sleek and dark, built for war in ways the Concorde had never imagined. 3,000 ships surrounded 400. The trap was complete. Across the galaxy, billions of viewers watched their screens in stunned silence. On 100 worlds, members of client species stood frozen. They had never seen anything like this. No primitive species had ever hidden such power. No one had ever surprised the Concorde this way. A new transmission came through. This time it was video. A human woman appeared on every screen. She had dark skin and white hair, and eyes that showed no fear. Commander Elsa Mataki spoke clearly and calmly. Admiral Vorn, my name is Elsa Mataki. I am the commander of the United Earth Defense Fleet. For 300 years we have watched you. We have prepared for this moment. We know what the Concord does to primitive species. We know about the Vithani. We know about 100 other worlds that welcomed your friendship and paid with their freedom. Today, humanity gives its answer to your offer of protection. No, we do not kneel, we do not surrender, and we do not forgive. Vorn's stone face cracked with rage. You dare threaten the Concord? We will destroy you. All ships, attack formation, fire at will. His fleet tried to respond. Weapons charged. Ships moved into position. For a moment, it looked like a battle would begin. Then the human fleet demonstrated what 300 years of secret development had created. The first wave came from the carriers. Fighters launched by the thousands, swarming like angry insects. They were faster than anything Concord pilots had ever seen. Their weapons cut through shields like they were nothing. Within minutes, a dozen Concord ships were disabled. But the humans did not destroy them. They did not kill. Surgical strikes only, Mataki ordered. Disable their weapons and engines. I want them to watch. I want them to survive and tell others what they saw here. The battleships fired next. Beams of energy that the Concord had never encountered sliced through hull after hull. Engines exploded. Weapon systems went dark. Ship after ship fell silent, drifting helplessly in space. Admiral Vorn watched his fleet die around him. Not literally die, he realized with growing horror. The humans were being careful. They were disabling his ships without killing his crews. They wanted witnesses. A massive human carrier moved directly in front of the Eternal Judgment. It was so large it blocked out the stars. Its name was painted on the hull in letters a mile high. The Prometheus. Admiral, Mataki's voice came through again. Your flagship is surrounded. Your fleet is defeated. You can continue fighting and watch your people die, or you can stand down and live to tell your masters what happened here. Choose. Vorn's hands shook with rage. His stone skin cracked and bled. No one had ever humiliated the Concord like this. No one had ever defeated a Vithri admiral. Stand down, he growled the words like they caused physical pain. All ships, stand down. The battle ended as quickly as it had begun. The Concord fleet floated helplessly, surrounded by human ships that had appeared from nowhere. Across the galaxy, screens showed the impossible image. A primitive species had not just resisted the Concord, they had crushed them. On 1,000 worlds, client species watched in silence. Then slowly, something began to happen. People who had lived under Concord rule for centuries looked at each other with new expressions. Not fear, not despair. Hope. Commander Mataki stood on her bridge and looked at the defeated fleet. She felt no joy in this victory, only grim satisfaction that 300 years of sacrifice had not been wasted. The Vithani had given humanity a chance. Today, humanity had proven worthy of that gift. Open a channel to the entire galaxy, she said. It is time to deliver our message. The screens across Concord space flickered, and then for the first time in 12,000 years, a voice spoke that did not beg for mercy or plead for peace. It demanded something else entirely. Commander Mataki's face appeared on every screen in the galaxy. Billions of beings watched. Some were the rulers of the Concord, sitting in their crystal halls with expressions of shock. Others were the slaves and servants of 1,000 conquered worlds, gathering in secret to witness something they had never seen before. A species that had fought back and won. My name is Elsa Mataki, she said. I speak for the people of Earth. For 300 years we have hidden in the darkness. We have watched the Concord enslave and destroy species across the galaxy. We have prepared for the day when they would come for us. Today that day arrived, and today we gave our answer. She paused. Behind her through the bridge windows, the defeated Concord fleet drifted helplessly. We do not seek revenge. We do not wish to conquer. We want only one thing, freedom, for ourselves and for every species that has suffered under conquered rule. To the client species watching this broadcast, we say this: you are not alone anymore. The Concord told you resistance was impossible. They lied. They told you no one could challenge their power. They were wrong. We are proof that even the smallest world can stand against the greatest empire. On the planet Sildar, Ambassador Venya Thros watched the broadcast from a public square. She had been released with the other survivors and sent home. Around her, thousands of Sildari stood in silence. Their silver skin flickered with colors she had never seen before. Confusion, wonder, and something else. Hope was spreading like fire across dry grass. A young Sildari approached her. "Ambassador, is it true? Did the humans really defeat 400 ships?" "Yes," Venya said softly. "I saw it myself." "Then, could we do the same? Could we fight back?" Venya did not answer, but she saw the same question on every face around her. For 12,000 years, the Concord had maintained control through fear. They had made every species believe that resistance was death. Now, a primitive world from a forgotten corner of the galaxy had proven them wrong. Back on Earth, General Webb walked through streets filled with celebrating people. The secret was out. The hidden fleet had been revealed. Humanity could finally step into the light. He stopped at a small memorial in a quiet park. It was nothing fancy, just a simple stone with 3 names carved into it. The names of the Vathani who had crashed on Earth 300 years ago. The ones who had given humanity the knowledge and the warning that made all of this possible. "We remembered," Webb said quietly. "We did not waste your gift." On Prometheus Station, Commander Madaki allowed herself a moment of rest. The battle was over, but she knew the real work was just beginning. The Concord would not simply accept this defeat. They would regroup. They would plan. They would try to crush humanity before the fire of rebellion spread too far. Captain Torres approached her with a datapad. "Commander, we are receiving communications from dozens of worlds. Client species are asking questions. Some are even asking for help." "What kind of help?" "They want to know how we did it, how we hid for so long, how we built our fleet without the Concord knowing." He hesitated. "They want to know if we can teach them." Madaki took the datapad and looked at the messages scrolling across the screen. Species she had never heard of. From worlds she had never seen, all reaching out into the darkness, hoping to find someone who understood their suffering. The Vathani had done the same thing 300 years ago. They had reached out to a primitive species and shared everything they knew. That act of desperate hope had saved humanity. Now it was humanity's turn to share that gift. "Send them a response," Madaki said. "Tell them we remember what it means to be alone and afraid. Tell them we will help anyone who wants to be free. But tell them this too. Freedom is not given. It must be taken. We can show them the path, but they must walk it themselves." In the Great Hall of the Galactic Concord, High Counselor Mordeth Khan sat alone. The other council members had fled or hidden themselves away in shame. The broadcast from Earth played on repeat, showing the galaxy what had happened, showing his fleet helpless and defeated. He had ruled for 1,000 years. He had crushed rebellions on 100 worlds. He had believed nothing could ever challenge Vathri dominance. Now he watched a human woman speak words of freedom to the galaxy, and he felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear. Somewhere out there, on 100 worlds, beings who had been slaves were looking at each other with new eyes. The lie of Concord invincibility had been shattered, and Mordeth knew that once such a lie was broken, it could never be repaired. The old order was ending. Something new was being born. On Earth, children looked up at a night sky that no longer seemed frightening. Ships moved through the darkness, openly now, no longer hiding. Human voices carried across the stars for the first time, and on 1,000 worlds, in 1,000 languages, beings whispered a new truth to each other, a truth that would change the galaxy forever. They are not afraid. They stood against the Concord and won. Perhaps we can too. The sky had split open. The hidden Armada had appeared, and the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had arrived, and they had brought hope with them.